one of them there Teslas, one of them electrically driven cars? I think it is. I wonder if that's the one that in America they look at as a compact car. I wonder what they think of my little Polo. Good morning everybody, Car and Biker here. And I've just been triggered by this car to record a little video. It just reminded me of something that I was watching the other day. I was watching, well you might recognise it. Hello, my name's Matt from Workshop, something like that. The Workshop channel. It used to be called something else. I can't remember what it was, something to do with pony or donkey or something, but I remember recommending it many years back. And when he had a couple of subscribers, and now he makes my channel look tiny by comparison. I mean, my channel is tiny, but he really took off. And I guess it's because of his brand of useful information and tell it like it is, I think is a nice way of putting it. It involves a lot of swearing. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, is it? Anyway. But he did a video the other day, and it wasn't about electric cars, it was about electric bikes. And it was about how, you know, these bikes that we're on now will come into the end. We're coming to the end of petrol. For cars, we're coming to the end of petrol and diesel. Not because it's necessarily running out, but because of the damage it does to the environment and the fact that we're now getting people, or governments, who are pushing people in that direction to go electric. Our government's not very good at it. It does do a little incentive to buy of £5,000 off cars, but I don't think it applies to bikes. But I think that's just made the manufacturers put the prices up by £5,000 and laugh at us all. I think there needs to be something else done to do it. There are other countries now, I think it's either Switzerland or Sweden or somewhere, where half the cars that are sold new now are electric. But anyway, that's not the point of this video. It's not about electric cars. Well, kind of not quite. Matt was saying about how he thought that the end of petrol bikes was going to be terrible. How he was saying that, you know, this is, they're evil, they're horrible, he hates them, hates everything about them. I won't go into everything he hates about them because he did 2 videos and they were both longer than I want to talk for. There's a lot of things he hates about them. And I think he's got part of this wrong. I'm going to call him out, which is a dangerous thing to do because I know that his followers can get quite aggressive. As can he. But he's got it wrong, I think, or he's got some of it wrong. I think he's got some of it right. I quite like the idea of an electric bike, although I don't like the idea of it being so quiet. I quite like the idea of an electric car because then you're in a big metal box where you're kind of safe. And the only thing that puts me off, apart from the aforementioned high price, which should get sorted, is the charging time, which also should get sorted. You know, the charging times are coming down, the technology is getting better, the batteries last longer than the cars now. So there's apparently Nissan Leafs that have got batteries with 1 million miles worth of range in them, so the car will fail before the bike does. So all those arguments I don't want to really touch on. But I think there's a really good argument that he's missed. Now I don't know how old Matt is, but I think he's old enough to fall into the camp of people that I think electric vehicles are perfect for. And that's people who will get to kind of retirement age, the time where you've got less money probably to spend on bikes, or even to the point where you're going to stop riding because you're just too old to do it, though that's pretty old, I think. I've got a friend who's now 80 who still rides and still loves it and says it's the only thing that keeps him going. So, you know, I would love to be still riding at 80. What I'm talking about is people of a certain age, but people who are old enough that when they get to maybe 70, let's say, these things will still be around. They won't be for sale new anymore, but they'll still be around. This will be a classic, and I will be old enough to be riding a classic bike. That's perfection. I feel sorry for all the people who come after us who'll be forced onto electric bikes. It's only a tiny window of people that'll matter, because the people who are starting to learn to ride now, it's going to be electric bikes very, very soon, and they're of that generation that likes, you know, phones and stuff, who thinks that being contactable 24 hours a day is a good thing. You know, those people will probably be quite pleased with electric bikes. They're fast, they accelerate hard, there's a lot less to go wrong in them, they're a lot easier to maintain. I think they'll be perfect for that generation. The generation that's a little bit older now they've got a problem. They've got used to riding around perhaps on a litre bike, a super bike, up for the road, and they've got used to it making funky noises like that. And those people will probably be a bit too young when they get to that age that I'm talking about. Well, not when they get to the age, but when I get to that age I'm talking about, they'll probably be a little bit too young to be riding around on a classic bike. They'd look at this and go, that's one of them weird, ugly things from the 2000s. So they're probably the ones I feel sorry for on that, because they'll be at the point where they can't really keep that last litre bike, keep it on the road for, you know, until they quit motorcycling. They'll have to switch to an electric at some point. But for all of us, I think there's a massive advantage. I've been riding around this morning, and this is the first properly dry road that I've actually been on. And wet roads are not in themselves a problem, but wet roads covered in diesel, which seems to be getting worse and worse at the minute, really are a problem. I was out in the car with Mrs. C the other day, and this has happened 2 or 3 times recently, where we've been going round a roundabout, a damp roundabout, and we've come across diesel we haven't seen and had a 4-wheel drift, just completely lost traction. Now in a car, that makes you go, oh blimey. On a bike, that can be really, really bad. That can spoil your day. But once everything's electric, that won't happen anymore. There'll be us lot, you know, pootling around on our motorbikes, probably a bit leaky, you know, leaking a bit of fuel maybe that drops on the road, but petrol's not slippery, it's really volatile. You drop it on the road, within a few minutes it's gone. It's only that blooming diesel rubbish that sticks around for hours. In fact, hours is wrong, sticks around for weeks, potentially. But there'll be a lot less of that, if any, if everyone's electric. So we'll be on our classic super bikes, having great fun on roads that don't let you down when you're going round a roundabout, or when you're going round a corner where somebody's dumped a load of diesel. You won't lose traction, you won't be coming off at stupid speed. That's perfect. Another point is, I generally get noticed on this thing because it is rather loud. But I didn't get noticed when I was riding to Scarborough that day on my little Honda superbly quiet machine, when somebody decided it was a good idea to knock me off. Now if everybody's riding around or driving around in almost silent, I'm going to go and put that back on its thing, almost silent electric vehicles, they're much more likely to hear you coming, especially if you're still on a petrol noisy thing like this. Anyway, I shall carry this on once I've filled up my bike. Don't need that dribbling diesel, do we? It's a very odd design of petrol station, this. It's actually a drive-through, which is great in a car. It's a lot easier, because you can just get your card out like that. If you're using contactless, you can even do it quicker than that. But when you're on a bike, it's a little bit more fussy, innit? Anyway, I've been and paid. I'm not sneaking off, honest. So I'm going to cheat. Oops. And go out this way. So yeah, clean roads, they can hear you coming. Third point, and it's only a minor one. You won't even have to do that anymore that I've just done. Now there is a slight problem with that. That in this case is you won't have to queue as much for the petrol station because there'll be very few people using one. Only the flat cap wearing, flat helmet wearing? That'd be bad, wouldn't it? Flat helmet. But the flat cap wearing brigade, like me at the time, will be queuing to get some petrol because everybody else will have charged up their cars and bikes at home, in theory. So yeah, it's all good, except there is actually some bad sides to this. He has got a point that there's some bad sides to it. One of the bad sides is you probably won't actually be able to queue up and get petrol after a certain amount of time. You'll probably have to order it off Amazon or something and have it delivered, because they're not going to have loads and loads of petrol stations around anymore. They'll probably change a lot of them into fast charging stations, and maybe there won't be any petrol, maybe there'll just be one pump. You never know. They might keep one pump just for us old fuddy-duddies. So that is one downside. And there is another downside, and I put it on a comment actually on this video, and it's something that I haven't actually heard anyone particularly talking about yet. But I do think there is one really potentially bad thing when it comes to electric vehicles, and particularly electric bikes. And it's probably not massively different to how things are now. But I've heard that the AA and the RAC and Green Flag and all the breakdown recovery people are concerned about helping people in electric cars who've broken down. And I have heard that the police and ambulance and fire service have concerns about helping people who've been in a crash in an electric car or in a hybrid that's got a big electric battery. And you can kind of link it up to Formula 1. If you're a Formula 1 fan, you'll know that they're all hybrids now. And they have a little light on the top, just above the air intake for the proper engine. But the little light on the top, and it changes colour. And the accident-y people, the marshals at the track, are not supposed to go anywhere near the car. Well, they can go near it, but they can't touch the car if it has a certain colour light, a red light I think, or if it hasn't got a green light. They can't touch it. And if the light hasn't changed, it's because the damage, maybe if there's been a crash or the fault that's happened that's caused the car to stop, might have caused the battery to become connected to something it shouldn't be connected to. And you actually see the drivers when this happens and they have to get out of the car. They can't just climb out like they would normally and then carefully put the steering wheel back in. They have to jump out of the car to make sure they're never in contact with the ground and the car at the same time, because the amount of current involved in these technologies is so high that it would kill you. And this is why the police apparently don't like touching the cars that have been in a crash, because there's no light to tell them. So there's a potential that that car body goes live and that touching the car could kill you because there's been a crash or because there's been a fault. Now I'm riding around at the minute with about 17 litres, because I've just filled it up as you've seen, of highly flammable petrol near one of my favourite bits of me. I mean, when you think about it, it is quite an odd thing to do. 17 litres of petrol going up on fire there, well, it would smart a bit. But if I was sat on a bike and there was a fault and the bike went live, it's not like being in a car where maybe you could get some kind of warning and deal with it and then, you know, jump out of the car. Because the inside of the car, you're not touching the ground. You can stop without touching the ground, and you can dive out of the car potentially if you're fit and able. If you've got an electric bike and there's a fault and it becomes live, I might not notice until I stop and put my foot down. And I've yet to see anyone come up with the answer to that one. I don't know what the answer would be. It's very hard, even if there's a light came, or even if it started flashing and a siren was going and it was telling you how much of a problem you've now got. Getting off a bike is quite tricky without touching the floor and the bike at the same time, or without going for a tumble down the road. I mean, it's probably possible, but tricky. So I think there are downsides too. And I'm sure there are many more, but I just thought I'd give my tuppence worth. Anyway, I've gone on for long enough, so I'll just say, let me know what you think in them there comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ride safe, and I shall talk to you all again soon.